Thank you for joining me on this beautiful, warm Sunday afternoon. I come to you today, as always, to get you guys to think about some things, to ask yourself some questions that hopefully lead you to taking control of all aspects of your health, because they're all intertwined. You can't have one without the other. But the key to all of this is dealing with your nervous system. See, many of you know that I've been dealing with helping people improve their health or athletic performance for almost 30 years. And it's been a journey that's led, to this particular area, because it's like something that leads you trace it back to the root cause of things. And since I've been a student to this, I've been worked around medical professionals, helped medical professionals, had to research as a medical professional. And so I know that the knowledge that I've come to has been actually something that most people do not actually know because it's not taught. So that's why I come here to provide some things that you may not know, because again, most of you do not know that your nervous system commands every other system in your body. You've heard about all these individual systems, but you don't know that there's actually one that controls it. And if you're like me, when you were in school, they spent the least time talking about that. They would tell you that your leg bone was connected to this, that, and the third before they would tell you about how your nervous system shifted, connected to your mental health. It's not like it's not necessarily known by someone, but I will give credence that this is not taught to medical professionals, because they're only taught to prescribe pharmaceuticals. And as one told me, to practice pharmaceuticals and surgeries. It's not about teaching you to learn how to, regulate yourself. So to kind of get into some things, like let's just say one of the primary killers, as we say, of mortality, as far as on the mortality rate, as you look right now and look it up, it would say heart disease, cardiovascular situations. But did you know that when your body is in a chronic stress, that your heart rate will increase, which will increase the rate of the blood that's being pumped throughout your body, which increases the blood pressure. But when your body returns, which it should return to a regulated state, that the heart rate would calm down. And so with the blood pressure. But it does not calm down when your body is conditioned to be in a chronic state of stress, because it's believing that it's constantly under attack. But did you know that? Or someone telling you that the foods that you're eating are more, or something better yet, your family history. That's always the one they like to use. Your family history somehow determines that whether you have high blood pressure or not your family's unregulated survival that's stuck in the nervous system, that's been passed down from generation to generation, that needs now to let your body know that it's safe. It no longer needs that programming. Or prescribe you medications that never solve your problem. So when I ask people who are on blood pressure medications, how is your blood pressure? And they tell me, oh, it's fine. And I say, no, without the medication. See, we've got to stop believing that your blood pressure is fine because you're on medication, because the root problem still exists. If you don't believe that, then you wouldn't take the medication. Or let's just look at the respiratory system. The respiratory system, your breathing, can work for or against you, because if your body perceives that it's under attack because you're in the stress response, you're in what we call the sympathetic side of the nervous system, which is there to protect you. But it's perceiving that you need that right now because it's always conditioned to be there. So now your breathing is high up in the chest, it's shallow breathing. You're probably doing about 19 to 22 breaths per minute, which is pretty rapid. So it's sending a signal to your nervous system that when your heart rate got up high, it's like something was chasing you. It needs to pump the blood, just like we got to the cardiovascular. It needs to pump the blood with high pressure to get to your muscles so that now you're able to perform the task to get away. But there's nothing for you to get away from, but your body keeps feeling it that way. So you can look at your respiratory system, because I also help you use your respiratory system to send a signal to your nervous system that you're safe. Because once you constantly control your breath, you are now sending a signal to your nervous system that communicates directly to it to say, we're fine. And that begins to shift all the other systems into place of where they need to be. You don't believe me? What is the first thing they tell you to do when you need to calm down? Breathe, right? But the problem is your nervous system has not been trained to stay in that state. So it goes right back to it as soon as you see something that unregulates you. And you don't think about breathing because you're not conditioned to use that as a way to communicate with your nervous system to gain control and not be reactive and be defensive and things that, or under anxiety and things like that come along with being unregulated. So indeed, the respiratory system can be used to help you, or it can be used to, if you're unconscious, to cause problems. Or let's just look at the digestive system. So if the body believes it's under attack and it's sending blood to other areas of the body like the legs and arms and things of that nature, because you need to run fast, you need to jump up, or some of you people have heard about women who have lifted cars because their adrenaline was pushing, because the adrenaline is released. The adrenaline and cortisol are released when your body's under stress. But that being said, it does not prioritize digestion because your digestive system has not been cut off. But when you regulate yourself, now it comes back on. So would you think that you need to fix your gut health, or do you need to fix your nervous system? Because pretty much doing this is like trying to fix your gut without fixing your nervous system is kind of like I guess the best example that comes to mind right now is someone who's trying to fix a car with an engine problem, but you fixed the tires. You did nothing about the engine, even though the problem was in the engine. But this is pretty much what most people are doing with these symptoms anyway. Let's go to the muscular system. Well, earlier in my career, when I was mainly dealing with the body, the outside symptoms of things, as a personal trainer and strength coach, I was always trying to figure out why is these people dealing with IT band issues, and some people with sciatic nerve problems, things like that. Why are their posterior chain so tight, habitually? But then I discovered, when your body is in a state of stress and survival, it's tense. That's why most of you guys are holding this tension in your neck and the whole backside of you. Most of you try to get up and stand up and touch your toes. It'd be pretty hard to do because your whole backside is tight, or the body's tight in general, because when it's stressed, the body becomes tense and tight. But in the same situation, like when you're in shutdown mode, is what many people would like to call depression. Now all of a sudden the body becomes weak and low energy. So I could normally tell the state of up until these recent years, when as I evolved into this nervous system trainer, I'm able to now tell when someone shows up, that's dealing with physical movements, is on the personal training side, or some of my sports conditioning got people, and I can tell if they've been stressed or if they're depressed, because now all of a sudden they're just kind of moving, going through the motions, and don't have the same, energy. Or you have someone who they just so tight. Or how about these pull muscles that you have when guys keep pulling these Achilles tendons? Particularly a couple of years ago in the NBA, but no one's actually looked at when these Achilles tendons were being pulled during intense situations during the playoffs. So clearly the nervous system was had been shifted into a state of stress, perhaps because that's what separates the people who actually perform well, who can shift themselves in a state of relaxation instead of being consumed by stress. Now, even though, it may not initially show up right then, but there are little things like anything. You tighten up when you go to the free throw line. They use the word tighten up for a reason. So, indeed, your muscular system tells the story about your nervous system. I mean, let's get into the endocrine system. See, this is where the hormones are regulated. This is where it's responsible for the hormones that's released within the body. But one that's under chronic stress is now releasing cortisol, as its primary hormone, which disrupts your testosterone, sleep hormones, because again, this is something else, and I didn't even mention, the anxiety. This is also causing people insomnia problems, but literally the hormones within your sleep pattern is disrupted when you're unregulated. Your metabolism, because many people out there, you think you're getting older. Well, if you've been under chronic stress for let's just say you're 40 years old, and most people start developing the stress because you take this on from your environment and your people. You've been in chronic stress 30 years or so, the body's going to have a problem with it because the system is not working properly. So again, a lot of these things are being attributed to age when not so much. Well, let's look at the immune system. When your immune system shuts off, it does not work correctly. It weakens when you're in a state of stress and survival. How many people do you know when they get in a certain mood, they get sick? Well, most people it depends on the level, because most people are unregulated anyway. They just went further down into what we call shutdown mode, and now you had no energy at all, and that opened you up even more. Even though stress and survival already lowers you enough, because trust me, I've had no illnesses in what I want to say 2 decades. Part of that, it was a lot before I ever know that I was doing some things that would help me regulate myself. But up until, let's say, the COVID situation, as I was learning this information, we discovered that your body's actually releasing certain chemicals that protect you from things like COVID. There is actually some things that have been tested. The body's actually releasing certain things to protect you from viruses. So your immune system is a lot stronger than most people think if you allow it to be regulated instead of under the stress response that you've been under and thinking catching colds and flus are actually something normal. So you're taking flu shots every year, which are also affecting your nervous system too. When the body, again, has its own protective forces within it. But you won't believe that because you're unregulated, and that comes along with the past, everything else. And let's take a look at the brain. Mental functions. Well, a person that's in stress comes, you got 2 levels of stress, fight and flight. You got those that in fight, you're defensive, you're irritated. As soon as something says something that you don't like, you triggered, or generally you're in shutdown mode, which is what you're calling depression. So let's get this understood. Fight or flight is what you call anxiety. And shutdown or freeze mode is what you call depression. So if you really follow what we're saying here, that it's only a symptom of an unregulated nervous system, that many of you guys have taken labels and made it become who you call yourself, telling yourself you have depression and telling yourself you have anxiety when you have a symptom of an unregulated nervous system. And regulating it solves this problem. But let's just take a look at the skeletal system. The bones. Bone density is also decreased when you're releasing high levels of cortisol. So when you have people that you're talking about falling and breaking things as you get older, well, strength training definitely helps you do this, because I've reversed this with people just by doing strength training with them, because it also increases your bone density as it increases the muscles. But the bone density was becoming weak to begin with, just how most people think this happening with age, because you have a chronic state of unregulation. So generally what I was finding myself doing was reversing what was happening to the people's body after they had already, began the process within them because they were unregulated. I was just simply helping them stave off time by, giving them strength training at the time to reverse this bone density issue with some people as they got to a certain season. But the thing that got them to this before I met them was them being unregulated. It would have never been happening had they been regulated. It's not normal. It's normal when you live in a society who's stressed. Or let's just look at the urinary system. You never noticed when you're stressed, you're using the bathroom a lot more. You might think about something, that instantly gets, kind of push you to a certain state, and you're running back and forth to the bathroom. It happens. It happens. Or one that, some of you guys should know about, that if you actually went to, hair school, because you should have been taught about the skin, was the integumentary system. Integumentary system, yes. Many of you probably never even heard of it, but it's responsible for regulating or dealing with your hair and skin. This is why hair began to thin out. I can recall in my 20s, I was trying to figure stuff out, and I'm coming from an unregulated background as far as my environment is concerned, and then next thing you know, I was getting what they call alopecia. Losing hair in spots, and it would grow back, but some of it would be gray, and then it would, go to another spot. When I went, back then, and when I got an MRI, everything perfectly straight, straight as far as they said is concerned. It's like, you're healthy. I'm like, well, what's going on? It's like, well, you have alopecia. I hadn't had to heard that term at 22. It's hair loss. Okay, I said, tell me something I don't know. Well, whatever it is that's stressing you, you need to let it stop. Stop letting it happen. And there's things popped in my mind then that it had been doing, but I had no idea how to regulate myself. I had no idea this was happening. My integumentary system, and this things cause other things like, because again, your nails and things, your hair, people, a lot of things that are going on within yourself because of skin. Your skin reflects your health. And so many people are struggling with acne, all kinds of psoriasis, all kinds of things that come with inflammation, actually, because this, it's basically coming from inflammation. And it's causing these problems that most people, are chalking up to age, but your skin reflects it. As a matter of fact, your skin and your nervous system are developed in the same umbilical process, because it's one of the first things developed while you're in the womb. So it's indeed a mirror of your nervous system. Premature aging and things like that is happening because your system is unregulated. And let's talk about the reproductive system. See, there are a lot of stuff going on right now I see on TV as far as, let's just say, men, because let's understand first that when it's under stress, it reduces your libido, and basically all your hormones are unbalanced. So when you're talking about men, you're talking about testosterone suppression. When most of you are out here thinking that you need some kind of TRT and things of this nature, that I've heard people even ask me, am I taking? Never needed any of this stuff, because my system is regulated, and generally it's a myth that it's even needed, because again, you're treating things from the outside instead of actually regulating what's going on in the inside. Things that are going on right now, what is this, Blue Chews and all these things that men think they need, because your testosterone has been suppressed not by age, but by being unregulated for a few decades. And let's just think about the women's side of things, because it causes, not only causes, menstrual irregularities, but many of you struggling with the midlife thing is menopause, which is a natural process that women bodies go through. But when the body's been under chronic stress and releasing cortisol, it totally makes the process that you're going through a lot more complicated. Because now you're releasing cortisol, and it's totally, causing irregularities within your body, So let's just say it's spiked a testosterone imbalance because again your hormones are unbalanced. It's releasing cortisol, so it's not allowing your estrogen and your testosterone levels to be balanced. Have you even tried to think about regulating your nervous system before assuming that you need to take outside drugs? Or better yet, let's just say, have you thought about adding this? Because if a person feels more comfortable taking these in the beginning, that's fine. But let's start looking at doing some things that actually you're taking control of some things. And as you begin to do that and do these practices, perhaps you can start seeing yourself alleviating from some of these things instead of becoming dependent and accepting labels and symptoms as your diagnosis. Oh, and the last one I'll probably touch on, because I could go on forever with this, but the lymphatic system, because many of you out there taking detoxes right now, even though you know you're going to go right back and put in some red meat and whatever else that's been shot up with all kinds of hormones and things, or in all kinds of things that you're going to go put right back in your body, which is another symptom of being irregulated, because a person eats as a survival. For survival, they're not thinking about eating things for health because that's not a priority. Remember, your mindset, your behaviors are all determined by your nervous system. But the lymphatic system is basically what detoxes the body. But what it does need is movement and relaxation for it to properly work. So if many of you guys are not doing exercise, to kind of bring this to you guys' attention, if any of you were moving around a little bit and all of a sudden, you said you went to an exercise class or something, you had to go use the bathroom all of a sudden, the solid waste had to move. How many of you guys are constipated right now, full of all kinds of things, and it took movement for it to move? Well, that's the same process that's going through your lymphatic system. But the thing about it is it also requires relaxation to go along with it in a habitual level for it to continue to do that. So, indeed, your body, all systems are totally, they're compensating when the CEO of your body, the nervous system, is not, being treated right. It's not being regulated. It's not being utilized like it should be to help you shift from the states that you need to shift throughout your existence. And it's not fault of your own, because there was a reason why they never taught you these things, because most of you guys are right now associated with symptoms and becoming dependent on systems that allow you to think that the symptoms are your problem instead of the CEO of the one thing that's within your body that is in charge of all these issues, to be actually utilized to heal you actually, instead of becoming dependent on things and calling that healing. So again, I don't want to go on too long, but just some things for you guys to think about and understand that you have choices, because that's what I'm here for, to not only provide education, but to provide and help you guys with simple practices that I promise will begin to change your inner state, which will change your outer world. And not only change your world, but it will change your people, because again, I can't say this enough, coming from certain communities who like to claim these generational curses, with the curses in your nervous system. When you begin to allow it to begin to train your nervous system, because you need to take command of your command center and let it know that it's safe, and you no longer need survival to survive, because you're not surviving. You're looking to thrive in this existence, in this third dimensional existence that we are here to serve on. Then you will begin to actually live instead of just simply exist. I love you all. See you next time.